Hello, friends. Welcome to episode number 47 of the Third Man Cricket Podcast. And this is just a continuation from the previous episode where we were previewing the 10 teams that are going to take part in the upcoming ICC Men's Cricket World Cup of 2023. Yesterday, we chatted about the five teams, namely Australia, New Zealand, South Africa, England, and Netherlands. And we thought this episode will be covering all the five subcontinental teams, including host India at the very end. And so, what better than to start off with the team from Emerald Island, Sri Lanka, that is, so one-time winners of the World Cup. And let me say hi to my colleague Ravi, and he can kick us off on his views about the Sri Lankan team.
Oh yes, thank you so much for the intro, Bhavan Bhaiya. Sri Lanka, it's one of my favorite teams probably after India for many reasons. Um, to start off, I mean, we'll have to understand how the mentality of Sri Lankan cricket operates. The fact that economically they're not so bright, have traditionally been so, have been through a lot of wars, but still consistently produced amazing cricketing legends. And let's be honest, they've constantly been knocking on the door, and then won the 1996 World Cup when no one necessarily expected them to. But even in the T20 format, they've been making finals and then eventually won against India. As much as I don't like to admit, they've been such an amazing side over the course of years. Even in the 50-over format, played back-to-back finals, uh, constantly been a very good team. But where they've miserably failed is with the transition. The legends have moved on for sure. The last of the legend, perhaps, in Lasith Malinga, just once he retired, there's not significant amount of filling or I'll say replacement that necessarily took place, and this is where this country has been quite troubled, right? Because the likes of Kumar Sankar, Ajay Vardhana, maybe even Sanajay Surya to some extent, and Lasith Malinga, so that and Muttiah Muralitharan, a lot of it could be argued that none of these players eventually were matching up. Let's face it, they found a jewel in the form of Vanindu Hasaranga, mainly because of this exposure to various T20 leagues in the world, played across tracks. Amazing with bat, amazing with ball. Uh, what he's done recently in LPL was amazing, like best batsman, best bowler, winning captain, whatnot. And what there's a big heartstroke that they get, that the fact is that Vanindu Hasaranga is not available for the World Cup. Same goes with Dushmanta Chamira, their best, I'll say, bowler. But what necessarily happened was they don't necessarily go into the World Cup with their full squad for sure. There's no two ways there. But in terms of their fighting spirit and the fact, and we've seen that in Asia Cup as well, you just can't rule them out for sure. I mean, this could be a cliched statement, but with Sri Lanka, I think it's all together even more applicable. And we've seen that in Asia Cup 2022 as well, in the T20 format, where they won the tournament, beating the best in the business, right? Uh, so coming to Sri Lanka as a whole, these are not even dark horses at this point. They're definitely underdogs, and I mean, probably there's a preview of what they could do or they could not do in the form of a warm up game against Afghanistan. But at the same time, what we need to necessarily keep in mind is the fact that their fixtures are very interesting, and the fact that their spin department is and the bowling department is pretty good, and they play on tracks that kind of favor the bowlers. So not to kind of digress so much, but I genuinely would like to talk about a couple of, I'll say, players that are definitely catching my eye. One is Dunit Velalage. Uh, in white ball, you know format, right? This guy is a promise for the future, and we've seen what a 20-year-old can do when he's filling in the shoes of someone like a Vanindu Hasaranga. And we've seen what he's capable of with the bat, with the ball in the Asia Cup. So he's one player that I would, necessarily watch out for. And whom I also really love watching plays Charit Asalanka. Uh, you know, we've seen him, get a, play that great game against I think Zimbabwe. And I don't think he's very, and it's all about the future, and he's just 26, and at this point in time, him and Kushal Mendes adding at the top would necessarily mean that Sri Lanka are actually doing well, and are probably taking it forward and then have a fighting total there. In Captain Dasun Shanaka, they truly have a three-dimensional player who can bat, who can ball, who's an amazing fielder, and at the same time has that leadership ability. There were a lot of buzz about the fact that Shanaka should get down, step down, but very nice of Sri Lanka team to just stick to Dasun Shanaka, because prior to the World Cup, the one should not necessarily get into these erratic combinations and whatnot. Kushal Mendes being the vice captain, Kushal Pereira out there, Patum Nisanka, Karuna Ratne, and Charita Salanka, and their bowling lineup just gets. This is actually something that we need to genuinely talk about. Mahesh Dikshana, we've seen him do really well for Chennai in the IPL, and same goes with Matisha Patirana, the Slinga Malinga, not necessarily emulating his idol, but at the same time, is getting there for sure, and is a young guy. Uh, and Kasun Rajita and also Dunit Velalage. All of these players necessarily add to the balance. And I was just kind of mentioning the fact that the tracks that play would necessarily help them a lot. We see they play two games in Lucknow, which is a spin friendly track, and their spin and slow bowling attack is actually quite nice. And they played Delhi. Their opening game is against South Africa. We know how Firoz Shah Kotla behaves, and also the fact that they play at Delhi twice actually, against Bangladesh and I think against South Africa too, and they come back to play about three games in Maharashtra, at Wankhede and also in Pune. Uh, and probably their only tough game, I mean, in terms of track, wherein it's probably 50-50, and don't necessarily have a easy advantage, is probably against New Zealand at Bengaluru. So overall, what I feel is, though the squad is not necessarily at the top, or probably they're missing out on players, what we need to understand, or probably clearly need to introspect, is the fact that you just can't take them lightly, because you know they have the power horses out there, and the conditions also may favor them big time. And let's not forget, the country needs their boys to do well, and it's a beautiful cricketing nation which loves their cricket. So yeah, that's my 2 cents on Sri Lanka, Pawan Bhai. Sorry for the long intro, but I love talking about this team. Over to you, Pawan Bhai.
Thanks for that, Ravi. Yes, and a strong Sri Lankan team is always going to be a boon for world cricket. Their supporters are very passionate, not unforgiving, I would dare say, like an Indian or a Pakistani fan, happy-go-lucky people, and they always, support their side, sing and dance in the stands, and are a lovely group of fans, to say the least. And they have always had this capability of producing uncanny talents, raw talents, which are unorthodox, and that is coupled with some stylish and elegant players over the years that they have produced. And I'm very much looking forward to their performance in the World Cup, especially their young group of batsmen they have put together and have shown faith in them, and hoping that they would show consistency in the World Cup. The likes of Nisanka, Asalanka, Kushal Mendes, and Sadira Samaravikrama, to say the least. And I think very important role will be played by the three seniors in the side, namely Dimut Karuratne, Dhananjay De Silva, and Kushal Pereira, who is the dasher, uh, and topped up with the captain Dasun Shanaka, who has been an able leader. There has been a huge leadership vacuum after the likes of Jayawardene and Sangakkara I would say, and they were changing captains like nine pins before finding some stability. I think he might not be the best player in the team, but Dasun Shanaka definitely has that respect. He has earned the respect of his team, and the youngsters look up to him when they are in dire need of any advice on the field. So, all in all, a pretty decent side, and will not be surprised if they give the top teams a run for their money. Having said that, let us move to the northwest neighbors of India, that is the mercurial side of Pakistan, who have won World Cup trophy to show for themselves in 1992. The tournament that I mentioned was the beginning of me watching cricket as a child. And it's been 31 years since that triumph, and they have been basking in the glory of that magnificent World Cup win under the leadership of Imran Khan. But the ensuing generations definitely are in need of some more silverware. And how strange it is that they were touted to be one of the favorites and a settled unit before the Asia Cup, but a couple of resounding losses has seemingly thrown them off track, which includes a huge loss to India, and the repercussions of that situation can have on the morale of the Pakistani team. But having said that, one such loss does not make your team incompetent overnight. To start off with their strengths, their top order batting with the likes of Fakhar Zaman, Imamul Haq, and Babar Azam is the key. They have scored more than 60 to 70% of runs in their ODI success. And we know that Fakhar Zaman has not been in form of late, but he is a player who has to be played in the 11 and given those chances, because the likes of Babar and Imam are more traditional in their approach, wherein they will not take the modern route of ODI batting, take their time to settle down, and then probably look to accelerate. Whereas somebody like Fakhar Zaman can take the game by the scruff of the neck. So you got to have that X factor in there. And they've got a very able backup top order player in the form of Abdullah Shafiq. So if there is a need for Fakhar to be dropped because of some ill form during the first half of the tournament, then they can look back and get somebody like Abdullah into the side. And of course, their other strength is their pace bowling in the form of Shaheen, Afridi, and Haris Rauf. It was a tragedy that young Naseem Shah had to miss out. I think out of the trio, in my opinion, he's the best bowler. He swings it, he seams it. But I think the overburden of modern day cricket took its toll on his health, and it's unfortunate that we'll miss him seeing in the action, because you want to see the best players on the biggest stage of the ODI game going against each other. So a lot will rest on the shoulders of Shaheen Shah, Afridi, and Haris Rauf. Uh, and their biggest concern are a couple of things. To start off with their middle order batting, they have the likes of Rizwan, Iftikhar, Saud Shakil, and Salman Agha to choose from. I think Rizwan and Iftikhar are definitely starters in that middle order, with Iftikhar providing some good overs with the ball as well. I would definitely want them to have somebody like a Saud Shakil and not Salman Ali Agha in the middle order over there. He's far good a player to miss out. He's gone through the domestic grind, that is Saud Shakil, and is a classical left-hander batsman. It gives a variety of that left-handed option in the middle order as well. They should not be looking at somebody like a Salman Ali Agha only because of the reason that he might give them some overs. You want stability in the middle order. And I was very surprised when they did not pick somebody like a Sarfraz Ahmed in the 15-man squad. You can play him as a pure batter, the kind of form that he has shown recently and in the red ball game the last couple of years for Pakistan speaks for itself. So I was very surprised when they did not select him in the 15-man squad. And there are the other Achilles heel, I would say, is spin bowling department. I don't think they have been able to find an able spinner after Saeed Ajmal faded away. The problem with somebody like Shadab or Mohammad Nawaz is they are good spinners, but not capable of winning a match on their own, dare I say, both are very handy with the bat, and on their day they might provide good 10 overs, but not on a consistent basis. And they have very little options in there, but will be forced to play both of them. Shadab also is not going through a good patch of form in the last 6 months or so. I any day fancy Nawaz over him. Good bowler, handy with the bat as well. And they have somebody like Osama Mir, who apparently has been one of the top performers in the Quaid-e-Azam Trophy over the years. He's a leggy. So if they feel that, they need a extra spin option, they can get in Osama Mir. Again, I was very surprised that they did not have Abrar Ahmed in the scheme of things in the main 15-man squad, although he's traveling as a reserve. He's a mystery spinner, mainly in the red ball game, and many teams would not have seen him. So I think it would have been an apt opportunity for them to unleash Abrar Ahmed in such a tournament. But I think the men who matter differ in that space. And to round off their team, I don't think they have good backup pace bowling option. Shaheen Shah Afridi is going to bowl with the new ball. Haris Rauf does not bowl with the new ball. So in the absence of Naseem, the only option they have is Hassan Ali. They've only gone back to Hassan Ali because of his prior experience and
Mhm.
nothing else. Even he has not been in, any kind of form in the recent past. And the other option they have is Wasim Jr., who has not performed as per expectations and, leaves a lot to be desired. So all in all, I think um, it's a very tough call for them to go all the way in the tournament. I think if they qualify for the semifinals, that'll be a very, very good achievement for them, considering the side that they have. And if they need to go all the way, I think a lot of things have to click for them together. Um, and a bit of luck also has to go their way, as it should for any team that wants to win the World Cup. But a lot will rest on the likes of Babar Azam and Rizwan and how they, you know, hold up with the bat, and Shaheen Shah Afridi and Haris of how they perform with the ball. And if others stand up and play the supporting act as per the expectations, then they can be a very dangerous side. If they are a blow cold and a blow hot kind of a sign, you never know what you're going to get with Pakistan. But once they get on a roll, they are very dangerous and can defeat anyone on their day. So they're mercurial for no reason. You can never count them out. So let's see how they go about their business. You want
100%.
to provide in?
Yeah, I mean, so Pakistan, they pretty much operate like India, wherein there are a lot of nostalgia merchants who come knocking, and they want their opinion to be heard. We know of the fiasco with the Mohammad Hafiz and the fact that a certain player was not picked. Um, but, and also injuries do not necessarily don't go, they didn't go their way, right? I mean, with Naseem out, I think with Naseem in, probably a lot was riding on him, the fact that he's been a strike bowler and whatnot. uh, the spin department still is a problem, but someone like a Shadab, I kind of like his presence. uh, I see a leader in him for sure. And of course, going through a rough patch, but yeah, maybe will be the trump card out there, and important for the batting to fire. For some reason, I feel the batting would probably take them across this time around. Mainly with the bowling department struggling a bit, conceding all the 330s, and not necessarily doing so well against various teams in the Asia Cup as well. That's pretty much on Pakistan, but yeah, hopes ride high on them. And needless to mention, for a good, healthy, functioning, top performing Pakistan cricket is also very important for India, not just to the cricketing world. So yeah, quickly to probably talk about Afghanistan. Uh, the memory of Afghanistan is all the passionate fans in Southampton in 2019, June 21st, 2019, sorry. And I vividly remember that game when India did pretty bad with the bat. Afghanistan were cruising at one point. But then we've seen a Mohammad Shami masterclass with Virat and Dhoni managing the score, like, slowing it down and whatnot, right? So, and I vividly remember those Afghanistan faces, how passionate they were, how much they wanted to win. People came in from various economic stratas, settled across Europe, and at the same time, how much this game pretty much means to them, right? And let's face it, I mean, after 2015, after 2019, at this point, they're not just the same Afghanistan side that we've seen in the past. They're better. They're much better. Their batting has significantly improved, but still, overall, when you look at the squad, you can still say that these are a bunch of folks who are heavily reliant on their bowling. With the likes of Rashid Khan, the strike bowler, and who has significantly improved his batting. Um, you know, we could see him to be probably one of the greatest all-rounder that perhaps the subcontinent, maybe spinning all-rounder that the subcontinent has produced, at least in limited overs cricket over the course of time. Uh, and not just Rashid Khan, but also in the form of Mohammad Nabi, with all the experience that he has, uh, uh, you know the the calm attitude that he has, the leader that he is, and uh, that means a lot when you kind of play a tournament for the third time, constantly pushing, been through a crisis, and the fact that despite all of this, they're still here, right? I mean, a commander in the form of Mohammad Nabi, despite him not being a captain, is quite significant. um, and let's not even miss out on talking about Mujibur Rahmans or Fazal Haq Faruqis or Naveenullah Haqs for that matter, mainly because they've been playing T20 leagues across the world there, and even in India for that matter. Naveen plays for Lucknow. Um, Afghanistan played two of their games in Lucknow. And all of this they need to be talked about more, mainly because I feel Afghanistan is another team that has their fixtures in probably spin friendly conditions, and fact that Naveen is someone who's a seamer who played some amount of cricket there for sure. um, but what also need to be talked about is the emergence of someone like a Rahmanullah Gurbaz and also Ibrahim Zadran. uh, this pair of you know 21-year-old right-handers who got really hard against the new ball, and of course I think uh, the kind of balance that they add at the top. Uh, we've of course seen flashes of brilliance from Mohammad Shahzad in the past, what he is capable of, but the consistency was a problem there with only one batsman going havoc. But at this point in time, with Ramonullah Gurbaz and Ibrahim Zadran, batting is significantly stronger, and we can expect them to do much. We can expect them to fire quite well. So overall, I think I mean we need to talk about Hashmatullah Shahidi, the captain as well, a calm guy. There was some amount of buzz in relation to if he should be leading, if he should not be leading, and so on and so forth. But I think like any other subcontinent squad at this point in time, Afghanistan improving their bench strength, also having a very good um, backup in the form of say Riaz Hassan, Rahmat Shah, Azmatullah Omarzai. I mean, he could still be featured in the playing 11, but what necessarily surprises me is the 15 and the fact that their playing 11 could mostly be unchanged, and a decent bench that they have as well. So overall, Afghanistan, they're here to surprise us. Of course, I mean, I won't necessarily put them in my semis, but they'll be one team that will definitely upset a lot of folks. And we've seen what they could naturally do today against Sri Lanka as well. Uh, and uh, I also vividly remember the high intense game against Pakistan in 2019 World Cup, and I was kind of following that on my phone, hoping Afghanistan would make it, but it was an intense game. And let's not, forget their rivalry against Pakistan and what we saw in Asia Cup, in the last Asia Cup and World T20 as well, in the last couple of years for sure. Lastly, I mean, what I'd like to talk about Afghanistan is their fixtures. Like how I was mentioning, they play, I think I think they played 2 games in Lucknow, if I'm not wrong, uh, or in fact 2 games in Chennai and 2 games in Delhi, and also in Lucknow, for that matter. So spin friendly conditions. This is something that they'd love to explore. And let's face it, Pakistan versus Afghanistan, Chennai. This would be an interesting game for sure. So yep, that's my views on Afghanistan. Via any thoughts from your end?
Very well said, Ravi. I agree with most of what you mentioned, and yes, they can be upsetting the apple cart for many teams in this World Cup. They've got experience of playing in India, which has been their home base for international series, and they would bank on their two main strengths: the batting maturity that they have had now in their team for the last couple of years, and of course their spin attack in the form of Rashid Khan, Noor Ahmed, and Mujib. They've got a lot of variety in there. And like you mentioned, the young batsmen in the form of Ibrahim Zadran, Gurbaz, and Rahmat Shah, and to add the experience of Mohammad Nabi and Najibullah Zadran to that, they uh, present a very strong side, uh, with their Achilles heel being their pace bowling department and their um, sometimes lackadaisical fielding that could cost them some games. But overall, I think they can pose a very stiff challenge to most of the teams in the World Cup. Moving on to the eastern neighbors of India to round off this episode is the team from Bangladesh. And I've always felt that the ODI format is best suited to them. They haven't been up to scratch as far as T20 is concerned, and they have definitely struggled in the test format. It's been 23 years since they gained test status, but have not proved to be challenging the big teams over the last 2 decades or so. And this is one format they have been very, very consistent and challenging the big teams on a regular basis. So they should give themselves a very good chance in familiar conditions, I would say. Again, their strength lies in their young group of batters, and we must also understand that they are going through a transition phase. This is the last dance at the World Cup for the likes of Shakib Al Hasan, Mushfiqur Rahim, and Mahmudullah Riyad. So they are in a good position as far as some young batting talent is concerned, and the likes of Najmul Hasan Shanto, Tawhid Hridoy, Tanzid Hassan, and the two Mehdis, Mehdi Hassan Miraz and Mehdi Hassan, have caught my eye definitely. So they will look to express themselves, and we know that the likes of Shakib and Mushfiq and Mahmudullah would, ably play the guiding and supporting role. So that should hold them in good stead. And of course, the other strong point has been their spin attack. Uh, but the peculiar point over here is that they do not have any frontline spinner to boast of any kind of pedigree, I would say. We all know that they're a dominant side as far as left arm spinners are concerned. And here the main spinners essentially will be their batting all-rounders. Shakib has been a prime all-rounder for most of his career, and the two Mehdis are also very good off spinners in their own way. The only other frontline spinner I see is Nasun Ahmed, so uh, not too much of guile over there. And they have a very good pace attack, to say, the likes of Taskin Ahmed and Mustafizur Rahman should lead that pace attack with their experience, having been part of a couple of World Cups earlier. Uh, should hold them in good stead. And there were a couple of young seamers also to look forward to in the form of Hassan Mahmood and uh, Tanzim Shakib, who was a revelation in the Asia Cup, especially bowled well in that game against India, swings the ball. But again, it remains to be seen how consistently their team can build that kind of pressure, um, and everything has to click for them right from their batting to their spin bowling and pace bowling to make them a force to reckon with. One player I forgot out was Liton Das. He is the next captain in the making for sure. and they would look up to him to, produce some big knocks at the top of the order. He's a very good batsman to watch. Plays well in critical games. 2018 Asia Cup final comes to mind, and so does the 2022 T20 World Cup match against India, where he was going great guns, and post a rain break he got run out. So it'll be interesting to see. They play a couple of matches in Kolkata, and you can expect them to have huge support in Kolkata, being closer to Bangladesh, sharing common language. So they play Pakistan in Kolkata, and I think they play one more game in Kolkata. So they should expect a lot of support in that domain. But again, they are not the best fielding side, so that will be very important from their perspective to get hold of all the catches and runouts that they might come where they, that might come their way in that regard. But yeah, they can definitely pose stiff challenge to all the sides, and nobody can, tend to ignore them. So mostly on the lines of Afghanistan, I think they will give a very tough fight to all the teams. Although I don't see them making the semifinals. A big loss to them was Tamim Iqbal. There was some fiasco going around him and his selection. He retired from the format and then came back, and then apparently Shakib told him to bat lower in the batting order, which he did not agree to, as he has been an opener all his life for Bangladesh, but was not ready to adjust. And we know that the BCP president Nazmul Hassan basically calls the shots, and has been calling the shots for past so many years in Bangladesh cricket. So uh, they have passionate supporters. You can expect a lot of them to travel and cross the border into Kolkata. Um, so yes, expecting a good fight from their end, and will surprise a couple of teams for sure. So with that, I think we come to the end of this particular episode, and we have had a look at the 9 teams so far. And in our very next episode, we will be looking at the hosts Indian team and weighing up their chances as they are aiming to become the fourth team in succession to win the World Cup on home soil. They started the trend in 2011, and then after that, Australia followed suit in 2015 and England in 2019. So let's have a look if they're able to continue that trend of the home team lifting the World Cup aloft. You have anything to add, Ravi, before we call it a day in this episode?
No, that's about it. I don't foresee Bangladesh to necessarily form a threat. I think Sri Lanka and probably Afghanistan probably place much higher than them. They're too reliant, and then there's too much noise happening too. So yeah, let's see. Nonetheless, thanks for your inputs there, Pawan Bhaiya, and of course, I'm waiting to talk about India and their chances too.
Thank you, Ravi. See all of you on the other side, and we shall chat about the Indian team and their chances soon. Bye.
Awesome. Thanks. Probably.